Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Filip, and I come from Serbia, Department of Chemistry, Petnica Science Center. My research is about novel imidazole-based dyes, their synthesis and investigation of various types of chromism. Imidazole-based dyes are present in our everyday life, and they have many potential applications. And what they have in common is the imidazole functional group. They have various applications, for example, in making photographs, in designing solar cells, for initiating polymer reactions, and they could be used as herbicides, fungicides, and bactericides. What they also have in common is that they usually have various types of chromism, such as solvatochromism, thermochromism, halochromism, and thermochromism. Solvatochromism is the feature of the substance that it changes color in various solvents, such as shown here in the slide. The change in color is based on the moving of the absorption maximum. If it is moving to the right part of the spectrum, we're talking about betachromic shift. And if it is moving to the left part, we're talking about hypsochromic shift. And the quantitative description of solvatochromism could be done, for example, by using Kamlet-Taft equation, which is given on this slide, which shows dependence on absorption maximas, on solvent acidity, solvent basicity, and solvent polarity. Halochromism is the feature of substance that it changes color based on the pH value of the solution, and as it is shown on the slide. It can be continuous or discontinuous. What is shown here in the slide is that substance changes its color gradually, and then we are talking about the continuous halochromism. But when the change happens at exactly 1 pH value, we are talking about discontinuous halochromism. And halochromic substances can be used as pH indicators in analytical chemistry. Thermochromism is the feature of the substance to change its color based on the temperature. It can again be continuous and discontinuous, and some examples are shown on the slide. Piezochromism is the feature of the substance when it changes color after applying mechanical pressure. And piezochromic materials have many applications in designing various sensors. And piezochromism, again, can be both continuous or discontinuous. The principal aim of my research was to synthesize methyl and nitro-substituted hexaphenyl B-imidazoles and to investigate their solvatochromic, halochromic, thermochromic, and piezochromic behavior. The first step of the synthesis was the condensation between benzyl, substituted benzaldehydes in the presence of ammonium ions, and by that, substituted phenyl imidazoles were obtained. And the second step was oxidative coupling between those substituted triphenyl imidazoles to get the dyes, where the dye with the methyl substituent is called 2A, and with the nitro substituent 2B. Now I will present the results and discuss them. Dye 2A shows solvatochromic behavior, as it is shown in the slide, where you can see that its solutions in various solvents are differently colored. And when we look at the UV visible spectrum from 350 to 700 nanometers, we can see that the absorption maximas are in the yellow range, which means that the solutions of the dyes would be purple. And when we are talking about the dye 2B, we can see that its color is also changing from yellow through orange to deep red. And when we look at the spectra, we can see that they have two maximas in the visible part of the spectra. First, in the green part, which is responsible for the red coloration, and one in the purple part, which is responsible for the yellow coloration. Here you can see the results of multiple linear regression based on Kamlet-Taft model, where we can see that the dominant factor for the dye 2A is solvent polarity, while speaking about the solvatochromism of dye 2B, we can see that all three factors are equally responsible, and based on the linear regression factor, we can see that solvatochromism for the dye 2B is a very complex process. Speaking about the holochromism of these two dyes, you can see the pictures where the middle picture corresponds to a neutral solution, the left pictures correspond to acidic solutions, and the right pictures correspond to basic solutions. We can see that the holochromism of dye 2A is discontinuous. It is yellow in acidic medium and purple in neutral and basic medium. While for the dye 2B, it is yellow in acidic medium, orange in neutral medium, and deep red in basic medium. Speaking about the thermochromism, we can see that both synthesized dyes show thermochromic behavior, where thermochromism of the dye 2A is again discontinuous, while the thermochromism of dye 2B is continuous. The color change in the case of 2A is from yellow to purple, and in the case of 2B, from yellow to red. Thermochromism was investigated only qualitatively, and I can surely say that it happens above 100 degrees. I didn't have enough time to investigate the critical temperature where it appears, but it can be a part of the future research. And speaking about the piezochromism of two dyes, here you can see the pictures before applying mechanical pressure, just after applying mechanical pressure, 2 hours after applying mechanical pressure, and 6 hours after applying mechanical pressure. We can see that the color change in the case of 2A is from colorless to purple, while in the case of 2B, it is from yellow to orange-red. And to conclude, in this research, successfully were synthesized 2 novel biimidazole-based dyes, and both of them showed solvatochromic, halochromic, thermochromic, and piezochromic characteristics, which includes that they have various potential applications, for example, in making photographs, designing solar cells, etc. This research could be extended by investigation of dyes with other substituents than nitro and methyl group, by determining pKa values for synthesized dyes, and hence making them usable as pH indicators in analytical chemistry, and by investigation of photochromism of synthesized dyes. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much for the presentations.
You're welcome.
The speaker.
So yes, thank you for your presentation. I have one question. What actually in the structure maybe of this substance allows this substance to exhibit such chromism? Maybe it's bond shifts or different interactions or what?
Yes. Here's what happens. We have this B-imidazole derivatives, and when we apply either pressure or temperature or light, there is a homolytic dissociation of this bond, and we get 2 radicals, which then absorb light of different wavelength other than the original molecule, and these are the species that are responsible for the different coloration.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your presentation. Can you please tell us what was the aim of the work? Is it new materials? And what advantages and disadvantages of your materials comparing with existing?
Yes, the principal aim of this research was to synthesize 2 novel imidazole-based dyes, which was successfully done, but also to investigate their various potential applications. There are some known hexaphenyl biimidazole derivatives, but with other substituents than methyl and nitro groups, and they were not all synthesized in the position 4 of this phenyl group. So this project had two aims: to design a new dye and to successfully synthesize them in high yields. And the second one is to combine two various steps in a synthetic process, because there were some attempts to synthesize these dyes, but the yields were not that high. So I combined the first step from one previous research project and the second step from the other one, and combined them in order to try to get higher yield. And it was successful, because in those researches, yields were around 40%, while in my research, yields were around 70%. Also, the advantage of these dyes are that they can be used in designing various sensors, because they have various types of chromisms. So they can be used for both photosensors, pH sensors, thermosensors, etc. But one of the major disadvantages of these compounds is that they were not soluble in many solvents. For example, dye 2A was soluble in only 6 or 7 various solvents, while dye 2B was a little more soluble, but again, the solubility was very limited, but enough for solutions to be deeply colored, so their UVA spectra could be recorded.
Thank you. Now it's clear.
Could you say, what is the potential for commercialization of your new dyes?
I'm sorry, could you please repeat the question?
Could you assess the commercial potential for commercialization?
Well, these dyes are synthesized from relatively cheap materials, from benzyl, substituted benzaldehydes, and ammonium acetate, which are relatively cheap. The process is pretty fast. I mean, dyes could be synthesized in less than 4 hours in relatively high yields. And so the price is accessible, and they could be used for many purposes. So if somebody produces a dye, they can use them for many different purposes, not only for one. So I believe that these dyes could commercially be available to a larger number of people.
Sorry. Hello, Philip.
Hello.
Can I ask you some questions?
Of course.
What can you say about the toxicity of that products, of that compounds?
In this research, I didn't access that part because I was concentrated on the synthesis part and on chromism investigation. But some of the dyes can be used, as I said in the introduction, as herbicides, fungicides, bactericides, but they are previously synthesized molecules were not toxic for people. Of course, as every other dye, they are pollutants, but with a proper handling, they could not contaminate the environment. So speaking about the previously known dyes, they were not very toxic for people, but for particularly these two, I unfortunately do not have that information because they were synthesized relatively recently, so there was not enough time to investigate that.
Good, thanks. And one more question. what spectral methods did you use to describe your substances?
For recording their UV spectra, I used the regular spectrophotometer in the visible and near UV range from 350 to 700 nanometers. And for qualitatively describing Kamla-Taft model, I used the linear fit, linear multiple regression fit.
Didn't you do NMR spectra?
Unfortunately, I still do not have the NMR data of these dyes. They were characterized only by infrared spectroscopy and determining their melting point. But as I said, I recently finished this project and I sent my samples for the NMR analysis, but I still didn't got my spectra. So I'm waiting for them.
Okay.